Last name, do you know? What's his last name? Howell? Okay. I got it.
They're still zooming. You haven't gone back
Oh, we'll let Sheldon
to
do
a
it.
hybrid. I was like,
He'll be surprised. We should just do that from now on, just surprise staff. I think that'd be an awesome way. Thanks, Sheldon.
I mean, it's like, oh.
As soon as they say, are we good, Destiny? All right, well, we'd like to welcome you out to tonight's meeting for the Harriman Planning Commission on Thursday, June 16th, 2022. We'll go ahead and have the Pledge of Allegiance given to us by Sheldon Howe.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll go ahead and proceed on to 2.2, and it looks like we have a full planning commission. So are there any conflicts of interest?
No.
Nope.
Cool, and we'll move on to item 2.4 for the approval of the planning commission for March 17th, 2022, April 7th, 2022, and June 2nd, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve item 2.4.
Motion by Heather, any seconds?
Second.
Second by Forrest, and we'll go ahead and vote. Everyone say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to the administrative items. The first administrative item, just want to make sure everybody understands that the administrative items are reviewed by the basin on standards outlined in the ordinance, and that public comment may be taken only on relevant, credible evidence. And I don't know that we have any of that, so we'll go ahead and proceed with item 3.1. Clint or Sheldon.
All right, so the first item on the agenda, this is a request for a special exception for an accessory structure. Let's see. Okay. The property here is located kind of the south end of the city here. I think it's Lookout Ridge Subdivision, I believe. Here's the property here, has a current zoning of R115. A little background information. This item was brought to the Planning Commission back in April 21st, where the commission voted to continue the item because they would like to get additional information regarding an encroachment and how that remediation of that encroachment would affect the location of this accessory structure, because they were asking for an exception for setbacks. So during that period, we've been working with the applicant. We went to the council for direction on how to mitigate that encroachment. The council gave staff direction, stated that encroachment, which is a retaining wall, could stay, but asked that the applicant provide us an engineering study to make sure that the wall was sound. Again, they asked as well to ensure that the drainage on that property would be directed south towards the natural drainage. The applicant did provide a drainage plan showing that retaining wall, and he is providing a swell along his property line. And engineering and the community development department is still going to work with the applicant, ensuring that the drainage is correct along the back side of that property. But moving forward, we are working on that item, and we should have no relevance on the decision this evening. Again, the property is at Lookout Ridge, zone R115. It's a half acre. The applicant's proposing to build a 27 by 45 foot building. It's about 1,215 square feet. The building size is in compliance with our accessory structure ordinance. The highest point of this building is going to be 28 foot 10 inches tall, which does exceed our maximum height for this size of lot. Therefore, that's why the applicant is asking for these special exceptions. The lot is an irregular shaped lot, and this is where the exception for the setbacks comes from. Just due to the shape of the lot, which is a pie-shaped lot, placement of accessory structures is a little more difficult on these lots because they're generally not as deep, or just the layout of the property lines kind of dictate on where the placement of a structure can be. His additional exception is for the height of the building, and he's asking this due to architectural reasons. He wants the building, the pitch of the roof to match his existing home. Here's the site and the location of the accessory structures. As I mentioned, the applicant's looking for reduction in setbacks due to the irregular shape of the lot. He's asking for a reduction in the rear yard to 3 feet and on the side yard to 8 feet. At the current height, if he was to build this structure at the maximum height ordinance permitted, it would be 25 feet. He'd be required to meet 12-foot setbacks on the rear and side. Just due to the lot size and shape, placing the structure in another area in the backyard and providing access wouldn't be practical for the applicant, and would kind of be out of the norm for your typical placement of an accessory structure with drive access. Therefore, he's asking for reduction in setback so he can place it back in the back corner, which aligns with his existing drive. Here's the elevations of the proposed structure. He is providing, I guess, nice finishes to all 4 sides of the building. Again, the roof pitch is consistent with the actual primary dwelling. Here's just a little closer exhibit of the building heights. And here you can see these lines just indicate, the maximum height per ordinance. Well, depending on what exceptions you give to the applicant. So with no exception, 16 feet. With no height exception, but setbacks is 25. And then with all, it's up to 28 feet. And you notice here on this elevation, the majority of the highest point of this building is actually into the interior of the lot and the rear of the lot. So the lot to the south, is it south? To the south, the building the side of the building that's adjacent to that south lot, you're closer to the 25 feet at that point, which is kind of consistent with the ordinance. So it's not going to be, overly tall and have any, minimal impacts on the neighboring property. And these are some of the considerations we looked at when putting together, these are some of the, requirements when we put together our findings for this application. Just as the applicant can demonstrate a hardship, the impacts on the neighboring properties, and the lot size and et cetera, the lot shape as far as height goes. There's other recommendations where, we could ask, he's asking for reduction of setbacks, therefore we weren't asking for additional setbacks due to his lot size. And again, he's asking for a greater height just for architectural purposes and not for creating just a higher building to increase the, the space of the actual building. At this point, staff does recommend approval with these following conditions. Questions for me? The applicant is here if you have questions for him as well.
Any questions for staff before we ask the applicant? Applicant, if you'd like.
Just one, Sheldon. It's not so much on the structure itself, but by decreasing the backyard setback, does that cause an encroachment on the platted easement, or will he get some sort of clearance from the utility company?
Yeah, so he's required to get waivers, PUE waivers, which he has already acquired.
Cool. Thank you, Sheldon. We'll go ahead and ask the applicant to come up if they have anything to add. Please state your name for the record, please.
Brian Daniels.
Brian
Thanks
Daniels.
for having me. Sheldon did a great job. One of the things I wanted to touch on when he was talking about it, with the roof pitch to match the house and the overall height, on the reason, how you calculate height is could be considered a little misleading, as if you look at the structure itself from the street view, it's underneath 25 feet. And it's just because my lot slopes from front to back that the back corner and only about 30% on the back corner will be higher, which is causing that overall height to be higher than what that is. He did a good job explaining that. I don't know if you guys have any other questions that I can help with.
Any questions for the applicant?
So in your description, you said that it's to match architecturally your existing house there. How tall are the walls of your existing house?
That's a great question. So I only have a 12-foot tall garage door on the structure. My house is actually has like a 12-12 pitch roof, and I'm only asking for like an 8-12 pitch roof on the detached structure, just so it's more architecturally pleasing overall. When I match the materials that I'm going to be putting on the structure itself too, to kind of go and be pleasant to the eye.
What is your wall height, though, of your existing?
My house is
residence?
a 2-story, so I have no idea how like the tall.
Okay, so it's more of like at least probably a 20-foot tall wall height.
Oh, easily, if not taller. Yeah, probably taller if I were to think about it.
Any more questions for that?
No, I don't think so.
All right,
It's pretty straightforward.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll look for a motion unless there's more discussion we need to have.
I'll make a motion to approve item 3.1 with staff's 6 recommendations.
I'll second.
First by a motion by Heather and a second by Brody. And we'll call for a vote. Brody?
Yes.
Yes.
Daryl, sorry. Heather?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
And Forrest?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, that motion is approved, and we'll move on to item 3.2, consideration of approval of a preliminary plat and site plan for Hidden Oaks, Takedown 2 subdivision.
This is a public hearing, too.
And this is a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and let me read that really quick, the comments for the public hearing. So we do have a public comment and policy procedure. So the purpose of the public comment is to allow citizens to address items on the agenda. Citizens requesting to address the commission will be asked to complete a written comment form and present it to Wendy Thorpe, our deputy recorder, or Jackie, our city recorder. And in general, the chair can allow an individual for 3 minutes to address the commission, and a spokesperson recognizes representing the group in attendance may be allowed up to 5 minutes. So this applies to all public hearings. So we'll go ahead and move on to Sheldon again.
Okay. This is a request for preliminary plat and site plan approval for Hidden Oaks. This is known as Takedown 2. It's located there in the northwest corner of the city, right south of where Olympia is going to be. This portion of this project is about 90 acres. It's in an R115 zone, and it is part of a planned unit development. Here's the proposal. The applicant is proposing 258 residential lots. This is split among 4 pods. 2 detention areas / parks. They're right in there in parcel A, parcel B. Trail access will be provided through the southern portion of pods 13 and pods 11. These will connect from the, I guess the trail there that's on the south end of the pods there. Access currently for this site is it's going to be up 6900 West, which is Danzy Boulevard. Right now, the access there would be on your west side of pod 10. That's a future access, and pod 13 on the west end there. That's going to be 7300 West, which has not been constructed. The applicant is proposing, and per the recommendation of engineering and UFA, is they're doing a temporary access through lot 1246 down there in the right corner, and they're providing a emergency turnaround there at the end of pod 13, where that road dead ends there into 7300 West. And both those, the turnaround and the access should be maintained until 7300 West is completed. Some items of consideration that we look at when going through these types of recommendations. Engineering, they did have some concerns, and one of them is that, well, they were asking that Danzy Road up there along the side of pod 10, that when that pod 10 starts to develop, that the applicant dedicate and construct Danzy Boulevard along pod 10 there. That will just provide that future access up to Olympia. Then again, the temporary access through lot 1246, and that is to remain until 7300 West is completed. MDA compliance, the MDA does require precast fencing. This is going to be specifically through 6900 West, which is Danzy Boulevard, 12,100 South, which the applicant is providing. And per the MDA, these should be constructed at the time of those developments. So they'll be erected during pods through the developments of pods 11 through 12. Again, so the two detention and park areas that they're actually providing here, the MDA just states that any park or detention space that's going to be used to count towards open space has to be dedicated to the city, or either a public access easement has to be placed on the property. And then a maintenance agreement will be done with the city. I believe the applicant's intention is to dedicate those to the city at this time. Density, so the land use plan, it cites maximum densities per pod. What the applicant is providing falls within those guidelines. They do allow for density transfer, and in these 4 pods here, they're not developing certain pods to their maximum density, so they're transferring those to pod 11, well, pod 12, sorry. But all in all, they are meeting the, I guess they're meeting the requirements for density for this pod. And the applicant did submit an overall density count for the overall subdivision, and he's on track to meet that requirement, which again is dictated by the MDA. As far as lot widths and setbacks, all lots, they will comply with the setbacks. They are part of the MDA. They are recorded on the plat. In addition to these setbacks, there are some regulations on the lots that are going to be west of the school up there on pod 12. It just states that no more than 2 adjacent lots shall be within 1,000 square feet of each other, and the applicant, has made that adjustment to the plat as well. Fencing, as far as fencing, the MDA just states that they are required to place fencing where it is, unless it's dictated by the MDA, they have to place it where code requires it to be. In this particular situation, there is, other than 7300 West where you have a collector there, there's no additional wall fencing required for the subdivision. I just added this as a concern that if they do install fencing along these trails, they do meet our ordinance for fencing along trails, where the fencing has to be semi-private, and just to ensure that when they move that fencing through those parcels, that they're dropping that fence down to 4 feet when it gets to the front yard setbacks. So you're not creating that narrow alleyway between those properties. Landscaping, they did submit a tree plan and park strip plans for the subdivision, which met city regulations. They provided these conceptual plans for the detention park basins. Staff would just like to work with the applicant a little more, just in regards to some of the plant materials and maybe some of the amenities. Per the MDA, they are required, if they're using any open space as a detention, they have to provide a recreational amenity to those detention basins. So we just got to work that out with the applicant to ensure we're getting that, fulfilling that requirement. So at this point, we do recommend approval, and I guess staff the commission can either, approve with recommended conditions, continue it, or amend any conditions provided by staff or recommendations. And here on the final page here under recommendations, number 8 and 9, these were just recently added, so they're not on the staff report. So if you decide to include these, just include those in your motion.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Sheldon. So we'll go ahead and turn over to the applicant if they have anything additional to add.
Thank you, Sheldon. My name is Ben Hansen. I'm with Ivory Homes, representing both Ivory Homes and Perry Homes tonight, because this is a project that'll be split 50-50 between the two of us. But we don't have any concerns with these conditions here. The 8 and 9 that are new from the staff report that we received, I don't have any conditions with those. We should be just fine. Just one note to point out on number 9, though, Danzy Boulevard separates our development of Phase 10 as well as the future junior high, middle school that'll go in there. And so my thought is, and the conversation that I've had in the past with Perry Homes is that whoever builds first there, whether it's the junior high school or whether it's the residential homes, actually builds that road of Danzy Boulevard at that time. We don't have a problem building it if we are there first, but if the junior high gets there first, I believe they should be building it at that point. So that's the only other thought that I have on that, but I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Any questions for the applicant?
I guess, yeah, how's that going to be determined? Like, that seems interesting where whoever's first builds it, is that?
If you
not
put it in the
contractual thing?
requirements, it's contractually required on them. The only way you would be able to do that is to remove that requirement. So right now, staff's proposing that it needs to be done with their development.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that answered my question.
So it'd just be what you all decide.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so since this is up on for public hearing, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And seeing none, do we have anybody online or anything? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing, so. And move on to comments by the Planning Commission. Thoughts, comments, or a motion?
Yeah, I guess my mind is going a little slow. I do have one question, if you don't mind. You don't need to come up. You mentioned the possibility of whoever shows up first building that road. Have you had that conversation with the school board? We have not, no. So I think the only issue I would have with that is I don't know how to contractually obligate people if it's one-sided. You'd have to include the school district.
You can only require if it's inside of their land, which I believe it looks like it is. So you could not require that on the school because it's not their land, it's this development.
Yeah, I'm okay with
Just so
number
everybody is
9.
aware, we can't
You can't
require,
obligate.
the school district could not build it because it's not their property. So something just to be aware of. So.
I also have a comment. If you could flip back to the map of the, let's see, that one's fine. That one right there, that's fine. So in the middle of pod 10 is going a small school, correct? I think it's
Elementary
an
is being
elementary
built
school.
right there. Yeah.
Yep.
So one of my concerns is that there's really only 2 points of access in and out of pod 11, 12, and 13, 11, 12, and 13, and they're all right in front of a school. I'm just concerned because the school's obviously going to empty out onto, that's just going to be covered in traffic as people are dropping off their kids and stuff like that. And so that whole area is going to become a quagmire of cars and whatever. I think that if we could, instead of making the access in the southeast a temporary access, if we can make that a permanent access, that would help alleviate, some of the traffic in and out of all 3 pods. Because I can just see tons and tons of, families just getting stuck there. Once school starts, they're not getting in and out, during drop-off and pickups. And then also along that road, if we can make it as accessible as possible for the kids to traverse the road and get into those pods and walk in those areas and not have their parents drive a quarter of a mile to pick them up and drop them off, I think that's going to be really beneficial. I guess my only point is that bottom southeast temporary access should be made a permanent access. And I don't know cities.
Any
thoughts on
comment
that?
from the city staff or engineering probably?
I'm probably giving them heartburn.
Can't tell if Josh is there, I think.
Well, I second what Forrest was. That's when I looked at how long these streets are, and they all go to, like you said, right in front of the school.
So in response to that second entrance, you're talking about the temporary across 1246?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, first I've heard or thought about that. I don't think we would want another access out onto Danzy right there, though, that close to that other intersection. I would need to look at traffic study in that, but that's kind of my first thought on that.
Can you go back to the master plan? Because I get what you're saying, Forrest and Brody, but in reality, go one more, the other direction, two more into the presentation. Right there.
So I guess off
That one.
73rd will eventually be
So yeah, I mean,
access.
we're basically, what we're saying is the elementary school will drain onto 12900 South and tie in directly to 6900 West. So the idea that people will be backing up, that they will be going straight to 6900 West once that's built.
Well, except for you're forgetting that Olympia Hills is all right here, and they're going to be pulling kids that direction as well.
But they would likely be going down 129 and 69 to get there, not through.
Right, but we don't want to focus all our traffic on single roads. We want to give people as many options as they can to go multiple directions, because if we concentrate them all on 6900 West, 6900 West is becoming a highway, and it's just going to become this huge mess. The idea is to get more connectivity, not to get less from these neighborhoods.
But I think our engineer is saying that that is the way they want it to be.
And those internal streets are, narrower right-of-ways as well, so they're not
Sure.
designed to accommodate as much traffic, but
I'm just trying to think of, this becoming a neighborhood, center. I mean, you've got a middle school, you've got an elementary school, you got a great park system. So are we treating it as individual nodes that are all separated by traffic, or are we trying to make it a place where people want to be and be able to walk around in these areas, but then they have to try and traverse large highways to get from one side to the other? That just seems contradictory in my opinion, so.
I think another thing to think about, my thought is a lot of those homes, they'll be walking to school that are in those pods around that school, so maybe.
Sure, ideally, yes.
Okay?
So 73rd, like once that's built, is that at grade? Because I know it dips down a lot right there and goes up. How is that
Can
being
you go to the
addressed?
overall, so we can show where the connections to 73rd are?
What?
Yeah, so here you can see there's, pod 13 connects over to 73rd, and then where you see that kind of upside down red T,
Yeah.
that road will continue to the west and connect into 7300 as well.
Because I didn't know if they're doing like some kind of bridge or it's going to go down and then all the
It's
way
going to
back
drop
up.
down. There will be a bridge across the creek, but it's not going to be a massive bridge that stays high. It's going to drop much lower and stay grade as it goes through there.
So it'll meet this road? Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Because I saw, I did see another one where it had a cul-de-sac, but that's just temporary.
Yeah, just until 7300 gets built, just for an emergency turnaround.
So is there going to be a 6-foot tall masonry wall along, what is this, what's the road that separates the elementary school and Pot 11? 129th.
You mean between the road and the elementary school?
Well, between those lots that are facing the road inside.
The backyards will have masonry wall on 129th, but not in front of the school.
So basically, 3 sides of the school are going to have masonry walls surrounding them, and then you're going to have a neighborhood road on one side. Correct?
Are you talking about for like kids getting to school, if there's any walkability?
Well, yeah, I mean, and you're basically creating a cage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We can't dictate fencing on the school, so it like
No,
chain link.
no, but having a masonry 6-foot tall.
No, I'm
really
sorry,
kinda-
the school won't have masonry walls.
Well, chain link usually.
Well, all the houses on Pod 10 that butt up to the school
I'm
will have
sorry.
masonry wall.
I misunderstood. I thought you were saying
Only
the
that
backyards
side.
in pod 10.
And then
over
across
there.
the street will be all masonry walls, because those are our backyards as well.
The side yards of the others, yes.
Okay.
Right? I mean, whoever was just moving the mouse, we're really only talking about 10, what was that, 1001, 1054, 1053, and all along the ones they just are moving their mouse on. That's where the masonry wall is, and I don't
I don't think, yeah.
I don't
like
know
you
if
said,
it's
not
truly
in the-
required. Typically, it's required between different uses. I don't know about that fence. So Sheldon looks like he's going to clarify that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so the masonry wall is only required along 129th. It's not required around the school at all.
So it'll just be basically all those lots that whoever's moving the mouse is
Right.
highlighting.
And there's, and along Pod 11 on the side there, there's a pedestrian trail, like a widened, like an 8-foot trail, paved trail too, that goes along Danzy Boulevard that will take you up to that area. And in front of these lots here in front of the school, they have that same treatment on their park strips where they have a widened sidewalk.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I feel better about access if, 73rd is going to be eventually built out. I feel like that's good access.
Okay.
Eventually.
So one other thing to mention, 129th as it goes east will connect over into Silver Sky in that way as well. So, I mean, we're seeing a pretty limited plan here.
Right,
but it
right,
connects into a greater network. So
Sure.
just wanted to highlight that.
Are there any other questions or
Well, I guess I wish we had more information on the parks. Do you know, like, I see the kind of conceptual plans. I don't know, do we have anybody from parks here?
no?
I just
or do
wonder
the-
if
do
it's
the
like
parks-
Can't say
usable.
input on that
Do the
one.
parks come back to us later when they do
Okay.
have a plan for the
This
parks?
they?
is preliminary.
Will we get the parks to come back? I think only if we say we want the parks to.
They may come back in a work session meeting, as they were approved through the most recent text amendment. The requirement from the MDA just simply states that the applicant work with city staff to kind of determine what amenities, the design and the amenities and those kinds of things.
I'd love that, just because I feel like we're getting a lot of houses, and there's more and more soccer teams, baseball teams, all kinds of recreational teams, and making these as usable as possible is something I think is very important.
And I think that's something that city staff, like in the last one, like the Hidden Oaks West, one of the conditions of approval was they had a detention pond, and so city staff was aware of that they located it right in the middle of a very open, very large, open, usable space. So we wanted to work with them to determine if that could be moved around to a different location. And so I think, we try to keep that in mind as well on these other ones as we move forward.
And Brody, my understanding on these detention ponds, they're going to encompass most of those parcels anyways, so. they're not
I
gonna
was
have
just
to-
wondering if like making them deeper and more rectangular is better for usage.
Right. I know that was, that was something that Heidi and the Parks Department wanted to discuss with the applicant a little more.
Yeah.
Just kind of laying out the amenities for these parcels, to make sure they get something that fits well and works well for the community.
Yeah, just something that's usable for those types of recreational things.
Okay.
I think I agree with that. I like the idea of more green space. I know there's a school there and kids will play at the schoolyard, but those two basins, it'll double as parks. I think we should try to maximize those as recreation facilities too. And I wish there was something further west, but
In the picture, it looks like some of them, it drops down and then gets even deeper on that parcel A. Just wondering if we can keep it the same height across the whole thing, depression.
a function of their elevations.
Yeah. That's all I have.
If you look in the bigger plan, I pulled that up from our packet, and it's got the sports park across 73rd. There's a
Oh,
whole
yeah.
big sports park over there.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to remember the other pieces that are here.
Okay. Yeah, it is a big project, so. Any more comments, or I would entertain a motion?
Are there any more regional parks, site parks west of Pod 13? Not on this property, but west?
Looks like Josh is going to address that.
Clint, can you go back to there's the overall diagram that shows all the open space that they're dedicating? I think that might be helpful to look at.
Oh, there we go.
Part of it.
Think
Oh, there's not. This exhibit isn't in there.
I was gonna say on bigger projects in the future, if we could have the full
answer your
site plan, I
question-
think it might catch that up on people. on some of
Daryl,
the
there
questions.
are, as part of the Hidden Oaks project, there are more open space being dedicated west of these pods.
Okay, yeah, that
usable?
would, to me, that would satisfy.
Yeah, so,
There's a lot.
there's the open space that runs through the whole project along the creek, and then there's also
Oh, there we go. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, as part of Hidden Oaks West, there was quite a few
Yeah, just because of the floodplain.
open space
I'm,
Yeah.
Space all
I'm
down through
good.
the middle.
provisions.
Okay. Again, I'll entertain a motion or
How many
more
requirements are
discussion.
there?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
For recommendation of approval with the 9 staff recommendations.
I have a first by Jackson and a second by,
I'll second.
second by Heather. Call for a vote. Brody?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes,
Heather?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Forrest?
No.
And that motion passes, and so we will move on to item 3.3 for consideration to approve the amended plat for Anthem 8th amended subdivision at 5167 West Denali Park Drive in the CU2 commercial zone. And we'll turn to Clint.
Well, good evening. This is a fairly simple plat amendment, one of course, 8 now. I think we've got 9 in the pipeline in terms of amendments for the Anthem development. This is taking an existing property in the Anthem subdivision, highlighted here in yellow, and currently that yellow piece is all one contiguous parcel. So the request is to create 4 commercial lots, as you can see, kind of identified in the overlay here. There's also a parcel A, which will be utilized for detention. In terms of, meeting the zoning requirements, size, width, and setbacks, of course, are established at the site plan. They do comply with those requirements. And then they maintain the existing easements that were part of the original lot, again, highlighted in the yellow. This is the previous plat that was recorded a few years ago. And then this is the proposed plat, kind of, shifting orientations a little bit. You can see the 4 commercial lots and then parcel A down at the bottom of the development, which will be along the creek. That will be for detention. On the east side of the development, you can, coming from Mountain View Corridor onto Denali Park Drive, half of that will be dedicated as as public street connecting into Mountain View. And then you can see the point where it kind of jogs, and then that's where the private street begins for the Anthem commercial development to take place. From what I understand, I think they've got a couple of lots either under contract or close to it for some future restaurant development. And then in terms of access to parcel A, they have provided an access coming off of Denali Park Drive that you can, it's there, it's a 20-foot access that will allow the city to maintain that, or to allow the developer to maintain that, I believe. The one condition of approval is that we need to have a better landscape plan to show that the detention pond meets the 50% 50% plant coverage, which we just recently amended as well in a text amendment. So that being said, our recommendation is to approve it with the one condition to bring that landscaping back into compliance with 50% coverage. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer what I can.
Questions for Clint? All right, thanks, Clint. We'll go ahead and move on to the applicant. The applicant here. Doesn't look like the applicant's here, but we'll go ahead and move on to the public hearing portion and open up the public hearing for item 3.3. Is anybody here to speak on this item? Do we have any comment at all? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it over to the Planning Commission for discussion or a motion.
Well, I'll start. The one piece I like to see that they're requiring some landscaping at the detention, and I'm okay with the cobble and the rock, but I'm wondering if they could do something more decorative with it other than just throw a whole bunch out.
Good point.
As they do their landscape plan, it'd be good to see something interesting there as opposed to just a bunch of rock.
Do you want the landscape plan to come back to us or just to have staff take care of it?
I think if we have staff take care of it, go to our landscape. We still have landscape on staff, right? We still have landscape architect on staff? Yes. Yeah, so if we would go back to them, I think that'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah, and she'll look at that and make sure that it complies with city requirements before she signs off on it.
Great.
I'm just thinking more of where they're using cobble and other things, if they can make that more interesting than just,
Like a
form system.
variation of materials or just like, yeah.
Well, and that'll be part of the requirement. So that landscape pond, as they're showing, it had a lot of cobble, which doesn't meet the 50% landscape coverage. So they'll have to include plants in that basin to meet the 50% coverage before she'll approve it.
Okay.
Sorry, what was the acreage of the basin?
Half acre parcel A. So not,
I just wonder if they can make it into something usable.
I think they need it for detention.
I just hate having that in commercial, just feels like wasted space.
Our architects are smiling, so I think they agree with you.
they're thinking half-court basketball.
You know, it doesn't have to be something major. There's a brownfield development just outside of Atlanta, just outside of their I-20 highway, and it was an old mill area. And what they did with their retention pond or location was they actually made it into a nice park. You know, a road kind of went around it. There was a actual, kids' playground there, and most of it was green. And then down in the lowest portion of it was actually water. Mm-hmm. And so that when it did need to be, when it was required to be retention, it was able to fill up kind of some of the areas where the grass and stuff were. And so there's ways to go about it where you're designing it so it's going to be useful. And I think that kind of goes back to your comment, because, the landscape architect that's on the city is just looking for code compliance. Mm-hmm. They're not thinking about those things. They're thinking about, okay, does it meet the 50% plants? Does it meet, this many trees, this far spaced,
Yeah, they have to meet the requirements and anything we levy on them. So if that's something you want, we need to specify it in our motion.
Well, I'm just saying that it would be good to look at it as a design opportunity and not just a code compliant opportunity.
Yeah, I'm just like, it could be a nice thing, amenity to the development if if they think of it like that, or it can be a bunch of rock that has a fence around it.
It is a commercial development.
But yeah, it could be a gathering place.
Smoking station for the employees.
What's that?
A place for employees to go smoke.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I don't know how you enforce that type of thing, but I just think about the placemaking opportunity that exists there.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, you go to these shops, then you can go to this park or place to sit, versus it just being gravel or cobble.
Yeah,
I could see it as a sitting area.
Like Clint said, I don't think it can be cobble because of our standards, right? At that
the whole
volume.
thing,
It
yeah,
can't
it's
be the whole thing
50%.
cobble.
Sorry. Yeah, the entire thing can't be cobble, obviously, so they would need to do 50% live landscaping to meet the ordinance, of course. I mean, if this is something that, and, with the applicant not being here to maybe speak to what they want to do with that and, constraints that might be on them to make that more usable, if you're going to make that condition, you might want to continue it, or,
Or you could make that subject to come back for that piece, right? Allow them to proceed forward and have the landscape plan come back to planning commission, so you could discuss out the,
is that something you want to you want to see, I mean, as part of the subdivision approval? I'm not sure if that would, be in the scope, but that could be something that we bring back to like a work session to say this is what, they're looking to do and maybe discuss it there.
however you guys want to handle it, just need to tell staff how you want to do it.
Yeah,
so.
no, I think it's a slightly separate issue than the site plan review, so
Yeah.
it should
Site's
definitely be
fine.
something in a work session.
I just think it's an opportunity to do something better than just what they might do.
And as part of your recommendation, if you wanted to say that, we approve this with a recommendation that the applicant consider, installing a more usable, or installing some kind of a landscaping feature that makes the detention pond more usable, then it gives them an option, and a recommendation from from the planning commission, but not necessarily a requirement.
I just don't think they'll come back if we do it like that, honestly.
Again, you can always require it to come back. So
Part of your motion.
Required to come back with,
you just have to put it as part of your requirement that the landscape comes back to planning commission. Since it is an issue that staff's pointing out. So you just need to amend the staff's recommendation to say that, but.
Yeah. I think, based on all the training that we've been going through over the past period, it does make sense. If we have the opportunity, let's do it. Let's do something nicer.
Okay.
I'm just trying to find all the requirements.
It's only a half-acre parcel, so it's not.
No, it's not big, but
That's
it's,
the only requirement currently that stands before.
oh, there's only like one.
It would just need to say, to meet city requirements and come back to planning commission for final approval.
Yeah, for
got it?
parcel A, but
Yeah.
no issues otherwise.
Okay. Do I have anybody ready to make a motion then?
All right. So there's only one condition.
Yep, that's the only condition.
Already there.
Currently,
Okay.
that's the only condition.
So I'll make a recommendation to approve item, where are we? Item 3.3 with an amendment to the one condition to have the owner come back with a landscape plan for parcel A of the detention pond for review
To planning.
to planning commission.
First by Brody, a second by, I think that was you, Forrest?
Yeah.
All right, call for the vote. Forrest?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
And Brody?
Yes.
That motion passes. So thank you, everybody. And we'll move on to item 4.1, which is a recommendation to amend Title 10 by adding a major corridor sign overlay zone to allow additional sign provisions for large commercial manufacturing and mixed-use sites. And we'll turn it over to Clint.
So this is an issue that we discussed probably about a month ago in our work session meeting. An applicant came for this is Rockwell Landing again. They wanted to have some additional signage considered by the Planning Commission and the City Council as they move forward with some development there. Their initial proposal was to just amend the ordinance for specific zones, for the M1 zone and the C2 zone, to allow the kind of signs that they wanted to have. And as we brought it to the commission and talked about it as staff, we felt the best direction to go would be, instead of looking at it kind of in a piecemeal approach, to look at this a little more holistically. We realize that there's a need for additional signage along Mountain View corridor and along, large state-owned transportation corridors that that could, benefit from having additional signage opportunities. And so what we're looking at tonight is just a compliance with the general plan and the zoning ordinance, and is there a need for this amendment? So currently, this is our maximums for the commercial zones, M1 and M2 zones. Really, the largest you can go is 200 square feet and 16 feet high is our current ordinance, which for the most part is suitable when you're looking at, just the interior streets where you have commercial area. You don't want to have a larger sign. You don't need a larger sign. There's not higher speeds. The traffic volumes are lower so that, they're readable and easy to identify. When you move into the larger corridors, however, like Mountain View, future state roads that will be coming in, where you have those higher traffic counts and higher speeds, then there might be additional signage that would be beneficial for businesses. The largest sign you can get right now is an MU2 zone. You can have a 240 square foot sign, and that's only as part of the Harriman Town Center development, which is kind of where we are now. Recently, we have made some some amendments to the existing sign code, which are shown here below, just in terms of approaching how electronic signs encumber residential neighborhoods and trying to reduce those and trying to make them fit better with the community overall. And those would also apply to this overlay zone that we've been working with on the applicant on. So there are those requirements there. So let's see. A couple of clarifications in terms of signage as well. So if the sign is within 150 feet of the Mountain View, then you can have then you have to, then your distance is changed. So if you're just on on a neighborhood road, I think the distance is 150 or 150, or am I thinking wrong? What's parallel, right? Okay. So there are some, as you're on Mountain View, there are some additional requirements in terms of separation for signage there. So I'm bringing this image back. We looked at this as part of the Lee's Marketplace when they were applying for their sign, just in terms of comparison of sizes. The Zions Bank signs are 75 feet. Of course, they're kind of depressed down below the Mountain View corridor. Lee's signs were about 60 feet tall. 45 feet of that is above the average grade of Mountain View. And then the signage for the Zions Bank sign was 673 square feet. And then the signage for the Lee sign is, of course, much smaller at 311. The applicant signs, what they're showing right now is about just under 200 square feet for that, for the actual advertising signage that they're proposing. This is just to kind of get an idea of what those signs look like as you travel along the corridor. This picture was taken just within, so it was taken 500 feet away from that existing sign. That would be the advertising signage there. That was the 673 square feet. And then the Lee's sign here, same distance. This is 500 feet away. And then overlaying that same, so that's the yellow outline. It comes from the RSL sign. So you can kind of see the change in size as from one sign to another. So in terms of zoning considerations, we look at in compliance with the general plan. This does encourage new and existing businesses, harmony with existing development. So this overlay is only applicable within 50 feet of the property line of the Mountain View corridor. So, It's obviously placed along major corridors where this type of signage is typically found. It wouldn't be allowed on any of our internal, internal streets in the city, just along these major transportation corridors. Any adverse effects on the properties would be governed by our recently updated electronic sign amendment. And then adequacy of services. One of the provisions of the ordinance proposed does not allow for a sign to be located in an easement, or in terms of, if the height of the sign, if the sign hangs over an easement, it can't encumber an easement in any way. So things that we've considered in drafting this amendment.
Added.
So the applicant's request is twofold. So the first part of it would be to allow this type of signage to take place along Mountain View corridor. It's a multi-tenant sign similar to what Lee's has already constructed. Again, as they came to staff and the commission, we wanted to look at this in more of an overlay type of situation where it's a more holistic approach instead of piecemeal. And so that's when we've developed this major corridor sign overlay zone that will be applied to different parcels in the city. And that would be the second part of this request. The second part of the applicant's request is to allow planned center signs in M1 zones. So currently, planned center signs are only allowed in the C2 and M1 zones. They have to be on 3+ acres, have to have multiple tenants, maximum of 200 square feet and 16 feet tall, and 1 sign per frontage. So currently, this is not a provision allowed in the M1 zone, and that is something that they're requesting, which we, as staff, would support as well.
Does that meet our other zones as well? This sign right here?
Yeah, so this sign is 100 square feet of signage, of course, but the dimensions and everything would,
You could build this where Smith's is or anywhere else,
as
correct?
long as you have the 3+ acre and multiple tenants. You could. So for this overlay zone to be applicable, you'd have to have 20+ contiguous acres for commercial, manufacturing, or mixed-use development in those commercials and mixed-use zones listed below. You'd have to have a minimum of 200 feet of frontage directly on a state-owned corridor. So currently, the only state-owned streets we have now are Redwood, Mountain View, and Porter Rockwell. And then it would also go through a conditional use approval process where it would come before the commission for consideration in terms of impacts and how it affects the overall community. These are some of the sign standards. Again, as I mentioned, you'd have to be within 50 feet of the state corridor property line, maximum height of 45 feet above the average grade of Mountain View, which is shown in that diagram to the right. And this is something that was considered for the Lee sign as well. The applicant's requesting 500 square feet for active advertising, and then 700 square feet for static, but no more than 800 square feet overall. So you have the advertising part of the sign, and then there's the any lettering on the support structure that would be included in the overall as well. In terms of the finishing materials, it would need to match the existing, the surrounding buildings. So we would need to see building design first before we would look at signs. The materials proposed are stone, brick, steel, or other similar materials used in the development. The edge of the sign cannot extend closer than 5 feet to the property line, and then it would comply with the electronic sign ordinance as well. In terms of applicability to parcels throughout the city, these are the parcels that we've identified that have those requirements: 20+ acres, the 500 feet, 500 linear feet along a frontage along a major state-owned corridor. On the south end, you'll see that there are some parcels that are selected that are not directly along Redwood, but that is because they'll be along the future Mountain View corridor as it gets constructed in the near future here. And this will be, so the actual zone overlay will be the second part of the request that you'll hear after this discussion. That being said, we do recommend approval, and if there's any questions, which I'm sure there are, I'd be glad to answer them.
I've got one. Can you give a quick recap? I think on electronic sign ordinance, some of the mitigations were reduced light levels at night. If I remember right, I can't remember for sure, that's why I'm asking. Was there reduced light levels at night? And then I think there was a refresh rate where you couldn't have some flashing, so that would had to be, so when something goes up, it has to stay for 8 seconds, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so these are those requirements here. So 8-second
there
dwell
we go.
time, 3-second fade transitions,
Yep, that's it.
and then the electronic. So yeah, I think this is what answers your question, hopefully.
Yeah.
And you're not changing any of that, correct?
No, so the overlay zone will be required to comply with these electronics sign ordinances requirements.
Yeah, we kind of flashed past this one.
Just a little clarification. So on the brightness, it's based on ambient light. So it can't be no brighter than 0.3 candle feet over the ambient lighting, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So it will adjust as the light gets, as the
Okay, yep, that's what I
evening gets
was.
darker. Then on this may be, I think this is a slightly incorrected, but that's 8-second dwell times along Mountain View corridor. And then the 150 feet perpendicular to residential zones, that's for signs that are less than 6 feet tall. If they're taller than 6 feet, it's 225 feet.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks, Sheldon.
Is there a minimum distance, two signs can be close to each other, in proximity of each other?
So the maximum or the minimum distance between two of these types of signs is 500 feet, as outlined in the ordinance, or is proposed in the ordinance anyways. So looking at a couple of properties, at least the 2 or 3 that I looked at, it would probably only make it possible for one sign, where you have the restriction if you have to be 500 feet away from residential, and then 500 feet away from a similar sign, then you'd probably be looking at 1, maybe 2 signs at the most in any one of these developments.
So is the Real one 500 feet from residential? That seems close.
No, so the rail signs are, they're right next to residential. They were developed under a different ordinance, under the MDA.
That's why we're trying to put this in place, right?
Yeah.
What's that?
That's why, one reason why we want to put this in place is so that it doesn't continue to have.
Right.
Exactly.
So that would count as one of these signs. So any future signs would have to be 500 feet away from the Real sign as well.
And at the time of the Real sign, so you're all aware, that was supposed to be the only 2 signs we would ever put on Mountain View.
Do you know that Real sign, is it brighter than this 0.3 candle foot?
I'm not sure the details of the brightness on that sign.
There's time, man, it looks like
You can see it across the
floodlight.
valley.
I don't think it's supposed to be, but whether we check it or not, that's.
I just wonder, the 500 feet from residential, that seems really far. Like, is it in any direction?
Yeah, so if it's over, if the sign is over, if the sign's over 6 feet, then it has to be, it's from any direct, it's a residential, at that point, it's a residential use and not a residential zone.
Okay.
So it can be from the house, not the lot line.
Okay.
I think 500
Yeah.
is a good thing.
No, it's good. Yeah, I could see it being good, depending if. the
Because otherwise, if you don't limit that, you're going to have more signs
Yeah.
because of that factor.
I think that's good. Yeah.
So would this allow a development that runs along Mountain View to have 2 signs for the same development as long as they're 500 feet apart?
So they have to, we don't allow off-site signage as well. So they would have to be, the property would have to be owned by the same property owner for that to occur. So they can only advertise for the property that they sit on, right? If they advertise for, they couldn't become billboards is what, that's the intent of that off-site signage
Right.
requirement is. So they couldn't advertise for things that weren't part of that development.
Right, but I'm wondering if we can limit it to 1 monumental sign per development on Mountain View instead of saying, every 500 feet, the same development could have 2 big video signs, bookending it.
I just think that would be hard depending on acreage.
And how do you quantify who's that new developer is something I would worry about.
Well, that falls under the linear feet of on the actual
On
highway,
frontage.
right?
I don't know. I think there's some circumstances where 2 would make sense for quality purposes.
I don't know that you'll get to.
Yeah.
If you look at those,
I mean,
if
yeah.
you go back to the map that you showed of the property, 500 feet is pretty big.
Well, you'd easily get 2 of them on the property
That's that
that
M2
actually
zone.
asked for this sign overlay. So that kind of double hat, double mountain kind
Well,
of
yeah, they'll be able to
property.
put one on Redwood and Port Rockwell and Mountain View.
I mean, it's 500 feet. 500 feet's not that far. I mean, there's almost all these properties probably could get 2.
So the properties that I looked at when I was kind of configuring this, and you can't see my cursor. So there's a pie-shaped piece down just across the street from Redemption. So on that one, there'd be, well, that would only make it possible to have one sign on that whole development. And
Because of the
then-
closeness of the residential issue, right?
Right, because of the closeness of the residential and the adjacency of the Real sign as well.
Sure.
And then further down on the south side of Mountain View, just kind of northwest from that pie-shaped piece there, on the other side from the Anthem, or from the Academy Terrace development, that will also be, that's also, could only have one of those signs.
So really the only area you could have multiple signs is down below Porter Rockwell
And the Auto Mall.
or the Auto Mall.
Yeah, I mean, I can see if all that property went down on the southwest or southeast part of the city was owned by one owner, they could have one on Redwood frontage and then one on Mountain View corridor frontage as well.
But at the same time, those 2 zones that we're talking about, those 2 areas, that's kind of what we want, right?
What?
We want more businesses, and if we're going to
The
put
Auto
signs
Mall
anywhere,
wants
that would
signs.
make sense to have more signs, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, there's a difference between having businesses and having signs. And they're not exclusive and they're not, contingent upon one another. RSL is a business, but that's not drawing anything.
Yeah, RSL kind of breaks all the limits because technically they shouldn't have a sign there. It should be down by the stadium.
Right.
Shouldn't even exist.
So those
Which is
south
why it was a
properties
special
are
problem.
possibility. What about up by the Auto Mall?
That's another area that potentially could have 2.
Yeah.
I'd
but
have to
that
look at
seems
it a
like-
little bit closer. I haven't looked at it in super detail, but. Right. Yeah, so the Auto Mall has their sign, their existing
overlays.
sign regulations. I think they're looking to amend their MDA. I don't know if this, if their signs will be part of that. So having this in place will at least set a standard for any amendments that they do. on
We
their
should
MDA.
try and keep it so
Yeah.
it goes to this, at least. I know it's difficult, right? All right.
I feel good about it.
Should we go to the applicant and then go to the public hearing?
I think the applicant is online, so it's
Okay.
Braden Spacher.
So we'll go ahead and turn it over to Braden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they look great.
Any questions for the applicant?
I think it looks better from quality versus quantity.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Braden, for looking into that for us. And so I think now we'll go ahead and turn to the public hearing and open up this item for public hearing. So if you're here to, I know I got a comment form from Zach Hinckley, and I can't tell if it's related to this one or to the next layer, but go ahead and feel free to come on up and share you can share it twice or share it once, and, okay. Whatever you'd like to do.
I don't go back to the map. I'm just on Redwood Road down on the horse's hoof. I don't know if you noticed the city map looks like a horse. Have you noticed?
No, I did not. You got me wanting to look.
So if you go back to the map, we're on 16476, and I think it'd be very beneficial. We own a property there that's an M1 zoning that we would like to clear down in the bottom, the big blue spot in the bottom, the horse's hoof there.
Yeah.
So it would be beneficial to us, and we would just, want to get it approved. I think it'd be very beneficial for businesses.
Awesome. Thank you. Is there anyone else here for public comment, or do we have any electronic public comments that we need to read in at this time? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and ask Planning Commission to, any other thoughts or what we would like to do? I personally think we meet the goal. The fact that we're tying it to state-owned roads in high transportation areas is vital to me.
And
I know
500 feet from residential.
Yeah, and 500 feet from residential. And I know that some areas you might get two, but in reality, they're in areas that you would expect to have two. So I don't see any major heartburn. So, but that's just my opinion. So, anyone else?
I would say my concerns were satisfied by the electronic sign ordinance.
Agreed. So I will go ahead and entertain a motion, and remember that this is a recommendation to the city council.
Sorry, I have a quick question for the city. Does mixed use fall within the residential use for the 500 feet, or no?
So the sign, it would. So the only existing parcel that would be eligible for this would be the piece down off of Mountain View and 134th. So they would have to, a residential use would be to the closest ones would be to the north. There are some to the south as well, so they'd have to balance that where they put the sign.
Because it's tied to the home structure, no matter what zone. It's not tied to the residential zone. It's tied to the residence itself, right? The actual house.
Right, so if you have like commercial on the first floor, like a true vertical mixed use building, you wouldn't be able to have signage like that.
Not within 500 feet, that's for sure. Okay. Which will also help protect it, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. No one wants to look out their window and see a sign.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion then. Don't all of you rush it at once.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the city council to approve item 4.1.
I'll second that.
Motion by Heather, a second by Jackson. We'll go ahead and call for a vote. Rhodey?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
And Forrest?
Yes.
That motion passes, and thank you, everybody, for that item. And we'll move on to item 4.2, recommendation to amend the Harriman zoning map to apply the MCS Major Corridor Sign Overlay Zone. And we'll turn to Clint.
All right, and hopefully this is the easy part of the presentation. So again, I'm going to go through a lot of this. I'm not going to go through a lot of the stuff that we've already talked about in terms of requirements. This would be actually applying the overlay zone to parcels within the city. So as I've identified these highlighted blue parcels throughout the city, these are the zone or the parcels that we would apply this overlay zone to with approval of this and adoption of the ordinance. So just kind of looking at each of those pieces, again, this is, Academy, or no, this is Anthem, the Anthem commercial, and then the Auto Mall as well. Within that provision in mind that the Auto Mall does have their own specific requirements now. But if through an amendment process that were to change, then we could potentially hold them to this standard as well. This is the piece we've been talking about off of 134th and Mountain View corridor. We have been talking to some applicants or some interested parties on this parcel, so we anticipate that this will be something beneficial for them. Currently, in the Harriman Town Center, they can only have a 240 square foot sign for advertising. This will allow them up to 500, so I think
Would
that
this
be-
one limit because there's already a Harriman City sign on that property?
So that sign
That is electronic? Just a question.
It's electronic. I don't think that it falls under, so where it's under the 200 square feet, I don't think there would be,
When the Harriman sign's short.
it would be it's even, I mean,
It's more of a joke because Harriman sign was never even brought to
I don't
planning
think that
commission.
it wouldn't encumber their ability to locate a sign there.
Okay.
But the apartments would.
And then this is the other two as well. The piece, of course, just south of, this is Academy Terrace, and then the piece just adjacent to the Redemption and south of Soleil. And then the southwest area that we've been talking about for a long time in terms of future development, the Rockville Landing area and further south. So that would be the zone. If there's any questions or concerns.
I have
on
a
those
simple
pieces.
question that I should have asked before, but Mountain View corridor in some areas is not 500 feet, it's like 300 feet. So with the 500 foot, I should have asked this on the last one, and it just popped into my head. Since you can't have a sign 500 feet across from each other, they could not be exactly across from Mountain View. They'd have to be staggered, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I like that idea, I just wanted to verify that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Could we go back to the auto mall zone?
Which area, sorry?
Auto mall. So it looks like we leave out a couple A1 zones. Is there a reason those are left out?
So those zones are currently owned by the state now. Those are, you can see the detention pond on that one piece there. So it's owned by the state, so we can't control that, but that would be considered as, adjacent to a right-of-way because the state owns it.
So we can't put an overlay on it because it's state-owned?
Right. It's already part of the corridor.
It technically is the highway,
Yeah.
It's a regional basin.
Okay.
so you won't get anything there.
Right. I'm just kind of got in the back of my mind, if it were ever sold for whatever reason by the state, then
And it could, just like any zone, if it gets sold off, if something changes, they don't need the pond and it's sold off to a different developer, they could come in and apply for the zone at that time. They'd have to change the zone, of course, to a zone that allows the overlay and then apply the overlay to the.
So they'd have to do two amendments, basically, to do the zoning application and amend this.
Yeah, I doubt that one will ever sell. To take that away would cause Mountain View to fill.
Yeah, especially the future Mountain View.
Well, doesn't
Right now, it's not an issue, but when the freeway comes in.
wasn't
that's
that the
gonna be
plan
a
of the
major
auto
issue.
mall developer to fill that area from, the C2 zone that's over, that they have to mitigate?
other parts of it, yeah.
What, I'm sorry, I missed what you're saying.
Yeah, that basin is sized for all, not just the frontage roads of Mountain View, but
Yeah.
the future freeway.
Yeah, that won't, I could see maybe the top little triangle disappearing,
Right.
but that big one, I don't know how.
I just
you
remember
do
them
it.
saying that they were going to fill that up with all the reclaimed soil that they had taken from the other one, so.
Yeah.
Well, they have some depressions on their other property, so I think they're just gonna use it to level out the rest of their property they already have.
Yeah.
And so the pieces that were selected were the ones that it could apply to
Now,
right now, yeah. So if they're zone A1, then they would not be able to be within that provision.
okay. Any other questions before we go to the public hearing for staff? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing on item 4.2. Is there anyone here that would like to make public comment on this item or in the digital environment? Seeing none, we will go ahead and close the public hearing and look for a motion or discussion by the Planning Commission.
I'll make a motion to recommend to City Council the approval of item 4.2.
Second.
Motion by Brody and a second by Daryl. We'll go ahead and call for the vote. Brody?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Forrest?
Yes.
That motion passes as well. So we'll go ahead and move on to, are there any other chair or commission comments before we move on? I don't have anything. Does anyone have any comments? All right, we'll just go ahead and discuss the future meetings. So Wednesday, June 22nd, there'll be a city council meeting, and Wednesday, June 29th, there will be a joint council and planning commission meeting. And then Thursday, July 7th, 2022, there'll be another planning commission meeting. I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Good job. Good job.